Hey everyone, this is Heather Zeitzwolfe, and you're listening to Get Radical with Your Business. I know it's been a while since I put out a podcast episode, oh my god, but I'm back again, and I'm with my friend Elaine Williams, who is a speech and video coach. We are talking about business, cults, gurus, and the blurred lines between self-improvement and when it starts to be like brainwashing. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and it makes you think about some of the people that you follow, some of the influencers. Are you following them at a cult-like status, or are you questioning what they tell you? It's so important for us to think for ourselves. We can learn from people. I love to follow people. I learn from people all the time. I read tons and tons of books. I'm a lifelong learner, but I also want to keep an open mind to the possibilities that they don't have all the answers. Maybe it doesn't resonate with me, and I don't blindly follow somebody because they tell me this is the way. Always keep an open mind. Here is my conversation with Elaine Williams about breaking free, building an authentic business beyond the cults and gurus. I started thinking about this, Elaine, how I've fallen down the guru trap, and I have this thing that sometimes things feel like a cult, and I will step back because I'm like, this feels like a cult. And so I did a little bit.
I have been in a few of those.
There's many things that can be business cults. It can be like MLMs are considered sometimes like a cult. Corporations can be like a cult. We're going to talk about all these different things. And I've experimented with gurus and things like that. And you spend money. And then afterwards, you're like, what was that about? What is your experience, Elaine? What have you done over the years?
How long do you have, sister? I'm going to change the names because I don't want to disparage anybody. But if anyone is like curious or horrified, feel free to reach out to me, but I'm not going to say the names. I had some friends that were in this energy guys stuff. I had known them for a long time and they were both like glowing and happy and lean. And I thought, wow. And I was pretty burnt at the time. I was working 50, 60-hour weeks and just like, something's got to give. And I joined the thing, even though I loved the energy work about it. And I loved the community. What always was weird was there was like such a reverence for the guy. Let's just call him Dr. Gary. They would be like, it's Dr. G, it's Dr. Gary, Dr. Gary. Oh, Dr. Gary. And don't get me wrong, I love teachers. I would be dead if I hadn't had some amazing teachers and mentors. Like, I'm a huge fan. I've been a coach since forever. Before I was a coach, when people thought that meant like you coach soccer. I was a coach before there were so many coaches. I was studying with Debbie Ford in 2004. And so I've been around the block a lot, even though I loved the energy of it. And I knew that it was healing me in some ways. There was always a part of me, my gut was always like, of the way people spoke about the head guy. And I was always like, I always thought, I don't want to get dependent on one person, whatever your religion is or not. You have meditation teachers. They're not like, you must follow me. They're like, no, you got to keep meditating and go to some yoga and get off the coffee or whatever. Right? Anyway, so I'm grateful. So anyway, I was in this work. I would still go see this person. I know that it helped me. I was always a little bit like, and then the person itself, he would like miss calls, he would reschedule, and then he'd yell at you. I remember one time I had a call that I paid for and scheduled, and he was like, I'm running late, I'm running late, I'm running late. So we did that for 45, 50 minutes. And then he was like, I'm going to have to reschedule. And so the next day when we're on that call, he's like, why are you driving right now? This is your call. And I was like, because we had to reschedule because of you. Anyways, I'm so grateful. I always had one foot out, and AA says, take what you need, leave the rest. Long story short, I'm in, I'm out. And there were all these volunteers. That's always a little bit of a red flag too, because they would look, I remember I would go to these events and they would look exhausted. And I used to think, aren't they supposed to be like lifted up from being in this energy? So bottom line, I go and I have like my final treatment with this person who tells me, okay, you got to take an Uber because you couldn't drive after. It was like a heavy, intense massage or cupping. It was all this. It was great work. The work itself was great. He's like, take an Uber and meet me over there. You got to get over to this thing. So I remember like busting my ass out of the Airbnb to take an Uber. And then I sat there waiting in his hallway for 3 hours. And when he finally strolled up, he had been to Whole Foods. And I remember just thinking, was this a test? Did I misunderstand? After that whole experience, I just took a step back because I was like, my gut was just like, something is not right. And then come to find out, a year and a half later, or recently, my friend said, oh my God, all this stuff came out about Dr. Gary. And it turns out he'd been misusing his power, sexually, did it, all these different things. And it all came out. And he wouldn't take responsibility for it. And my friend called me and she said, I want to acknowledge you because it was very cult-like and you knew something was off and then you took yourself out. So I really want to acknowledge you for that. And I'm sharing that, not that I'm so great, but as a 55-year-old businesswoman, I've had to retrain myself to listen to my gut because there were many times I did not. And so I'm just going to encourage anybody, take what you need and leave the rest. And if you ever felt like things are too weird or too intense or just feels off, it's okay to step back, go for a walk, say, you know what? I don't know if I can come to the conference.
You could invest in a lot of these gurus, spend a lot of money and feel you're so invested that you don't want to walk away. But if it doesn't feel right, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to make mistakes in your business. I think like a lot of these business gurus, there's a lot of great things about Tony Robbins. But if all you're doing is just going to his events and you're just spending lots of money and you're not actually working on your business, well, what is the point? I think sometimes people get so caught up in the guru nature of getting ready to get ready and not taking action.
Can I piggyback on that too, Heather?
Yeah, of course.
I'm grateful for every single course I've ever done because I've learned either this was amazing or, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing I never want to be a teacher like this. I really always try to see what's the lesson. And this is very known. Peak Potentials was like the fastest growing personal development company for a long time. It really catapulted a lot of people, but there are also a whole bunch of lawsuits that came out about it for lots and lots of reasons. And I won't go into the whole thing. There was like a 3-day basic weekend. You're looking at money. And I loved it. I always ran into people that I knew from Toastmasters and Landmark. It was like my people. And I remember loving it and having some ahas. And I signed up for Train the Trainer. And I loved Train the Trainer and Train the Trainer 1 and 2. And I got some amazing training and also just some really powerful feedback for myself as a speaker, trainer, blah, blah, blah. But there was a huge gap. So each programs would be like 3,000, 4,000, it would depend. But then there was a thing called the Quantum Leap. And it was like $75K. And you got to do all the programs. Part of this, and Tony Robbins says this too, if there's jumping, there's dancing, there's music, there's high energy. So people get used to all those endorphins.
Right.
And seeing the same people. And it feels good, especially if you used to go clubbing a lot. Or I remember thinking, this is so fun. But luckily, you'd be proud of me, Heather, I was disciplined. So I only did a few courses. I wanted to do the Quantum Leap, but I knew I don't have, that's crazy for me where I am right now, blah, 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 blah. So I did Train the Trainer 1, and then I did a whole bunch of other things. I'm doing comedy. I'm training as a life coach. I'm working on my speaking. And I had to postpone Train the Trainer 2 for a while. And they finally were like, okay, this is the last one we're doing. You have to come to LA if you want to do this. And I had already paid for it. I go to LA. And there's been like a gap since I've been in the community, right? I don't know, a year, 2, something. So I'm at Train the Trainer, I'm running into people and I'm talking to other people. And so I was, hey, what have you done? Oh, have you done Warrior? Have you done? I kept meeting people who were bankrupt, who had lost their house. And they were like, I'm into foreclosure, but we're really positive about this transition. And I remember sitting there thinking, don't, because I was like, and I kept thinking, close your mouth, close your mouth. And I met several couples who had done the Quantum Leap together, and they had gotten so addicted to feeling good, jumping on planes, charging everything, saying, okay, I'm going to manifest this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And they had all the vision boards and they had all the training, but they had not done any of the implementation or probably had done very little because the intensity of the programs. And so they were riding the high of the programs and they had gone bankrupt. And I remember thinking, learn from this, Elaine, learn from this. Don't judge, but learn from this. And I was so grateful that I had not done, because you get excited in the moment and people are running back to the room. And the head dude, he was a very charismatic guy. There were a lot of things out of integrity with this company, I'll say. And that's all I need to say. I called them once to tell them about their real estate guy, what was going on with him. And they didn't blink an eye and they kept putting him on the stage. So I remember once I saw that, I said, I'm done. But I learned so much from the whole process. But I'll never forget meeting people who had drank the Kool-Aid. They had lost themselves. They had lost their houses in the process. And it was like, oh my God.
That happens a lot. And that happens with people that get invested with like
Tony Robbins. I've met a lot of people from Tony Robbins.
A lot of people want to have that quick fix. And there's some really interesting articles online about these smaller gurus. So Tony Robbins is like big. Everybody knows his name. But there are these other gurus that come online and like promise, I'll show you all about drop shipping, or I'll explain to you about these different get rich schemes.
On Amazon. Do you know how much volume you have to make enough money from being affiliate? I love affiliate marketing. I started out as an internet marketer doing affiliate stuff. Love it. But my experience with Amazon, it's like 3 pennies. You spend so much time and energy setting things up. The volume that you have to do is crazy. And I don't know the latest stuff, but yeah.
Like you said, they're riding that hype. I don't know if you saw there was a documentary on LuLaRoe or something like that.
It's tight. Yeah. Oh God.
And so people were like, they had that energy of, yes, they were all into it. And they're like buying these leggings. But all these people are sitting on all this inventory of leggings in their house they couldn't unload.
All the time with other MLMs.
The data shows that like 99% of the people that are in these MLMs do not make any money. In fact, they lose money, where there's only about 1% of the people who actually do make money. And they're the ones that are like at the top.
I do want to say in defense, like I do know people that are breaking even, like they love the products, they sell them and it covers their use of the product.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that do it like a hobby, but they call it a business. And then I know people who've done very well in certain arenas. And I do think that there are some companies that do have integrity. I don't want to make this blanket statement.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think sometimes giving somebody some hope is worth a lot of fucking money. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're in a dead-end job. You're in a dead-end marriage or relationship. You feel like you cannot get caught up. I went to college and this or whatever. So sometimes I think giving somebody some inspiration and hope to do something different, to stretch, sometimes that can be amazing. It's the bait and switch that bothers me.
Exactly. I have friends that do MLMs and they love the product, and there could be cosmetics or whatever. And it could be like they put on parties, they have fun. And it's like you said, it's almost like a hobby business kind of thing. It's the companies I'm talking about where it's like the whole family has been like indoctrinated into this thing. And now they're putting their house up for mortgage. And then there's this competition where it's like, oh, these people got a car. And there's this weird thing of like this fake status thing going on. I mean, it goes back to all the way to like Amway. And yes, there are good ones. They have good products and people, that's fine. I just don't want people to get caught up in some kind of pyramid scheme where they lose everything.
What I hear the theme of it is like slowing down. And that's why Heather is so great. I'm so excited to be starting your program next week. It's so great when you can have a trusted advisor just help you with non-judgment and go, okay, you're having fun selling blah, blah, blah. Let's look at, so you're spending this much a month on da, 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 da. Let's really look at the numbers so you can just be clear with yourself. I know I've lied to myself. I'm doing a business. And it's like, well, Elaine, acting. I love acting. Did I make money in acting? I did. Did I spend a lot more than I made? Yeah. Technically, I've been a professional entertainer my entire life. But if you looked at all the classes and the workshops and the 2 degrees, I'm sure that would outweigh it. Now, am I using it in my coaching? Absolutely. I wouldn't change any of that. But I think it's just great to be clear and empowered instead of lying to yourself. And to me, Heather, like admitting, you know what, I made a mistake when I bought this house in Philadelphia and I was going to rehab it and flip it or whatever. And finally admitting that it was a huge mistake and finally letting go after sleepless nights, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, heroin kids, life-threatening phone calls. I could go on and on. It's hard to say, this is my idea. I had a partner who's not thinking he had an agenda, but finally admitting, I made a mistake. I've got to let this go now. It's hard. And I didn't learn that. I didn't learn that from my family. I didn't learn that from school. So I think that's one of the hardest.
Yeah. Another thing in defense of like the MLMs, like I Googled business gurus and predominantly they're men. There's a few like Marie Forleo and some, other people that are considered female gurus, but for most part, they're men. Women, if they want to start a business, oftentimes an easy entry is through an MLM. They get exposed to that. Those companies oftentimes have great training programs for them to learn how to sell. So it can allow them an easy entryway into starting a business. I want to be clear that I'm separating the ones from like the ones that are like predatory, just rip every cent out of you.
Yeah. And that's great. That's why it's always good to ask people word of mouth. And if you feel like you want to become an entrepreneur and you're looking, or maybe you got invited to come to a thing, just know that other people have agendas. I feel so silly saying this. When I was taking my real estate courses, and I was learning all about buy and holds and flipping and selling. And I was so invested. It never occurred to me that my friend wanted to make a commission off of me, which is so naive. I had several friends and their agenda was to make their commission. It was not in my best interest, actually, to buy any of the houses that I bought, but whatever. I own that. Nobody held a gun to my head. I thought it was a good idea at the time, and I was invested, and I wanted to have a female comedy club for female comedians. And that was my vision. And it blew up when 2008 happened, whatever. But it never occurred to me that people who I considered friends, their agenda was to make money off of me. And now I feel like, I was new. I was so naive. I just encourage, if somebody's watching this and you've been invited to something, yay, go support your friend. But just know sometimes people have agendas and it's not always your best intentions. And that was a really hard lesson for me.
Another thing is, if it seems too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. Like you can make $1 million by the end of the year, or you can make 20,000 this month. Like what? Some of this stuff just doesn't add up. And sure, there are possible ways of doing it, but usually there's some kind of runway that happens before you have to put things in place and set things up. And it doesn't instantaneously happen that way. And just because it happened for someone else does not mean that it's going to happen for you either. Maybe they have connections that you don't have. We are all starting from a different place, but
there's so many factors.
Yeah. But one thing I want to talk about is some of the warning signs of mind control. I'm guilty of, if I like somebody and what they're saying, I will go down that rabbit hole and buy all their books. I got into listening to Dave Ramsey and I took his course on being a financial coach. I was looking for a financial coaching program and I took it. And there were a few things in there that was like, seemed a little bit Christianity kind of, and fine with religion. I'm nothing against religion. I'm not necessarily Christian. I'm spiritual. But it's like one of those things. It's like just in there. Okay, it's okay. But then once I went through the program, like every training was heavy Christianity in there. So it's okay. This is, I guess, not 100% for me. But I went down to Tennessee. I went to their big headquarters. And when I was there, I didn't realize how popular he was. So when I went to his location in Tennessee, they were building another giant, it was a new facility, and they were building another giant building. And they were filming his program where there was like, I'm debt free, and there's tons of people there just there to watch. People make this pilgrimage to go there and meet him. And it's kind of a crazy thing. And it was cool, but I didn't really understand how culty it was yet. So I was down there for the business boutique. It was a seminar or whatever. And it was a lot of fun. But it was, in hindsight, when I look back at it, very kind of culty type stuff that they were doing, and not necessarily like in a like a horrible way, but they get you into their world and then they want you to buy all their products. There was some cult-like aspects to it. That was like my warning sign. And then I had some clients that came over to me through their thing. Some of them resonated with me, but other ones didn't. And it was like, I could tell that they were culty, like being led. They had no other thoughts of how to do finances except for what Dave Ramsey's going to tell them. They were just going to follow that path and not question like, well, maybe that doesn't work exactly for me. I know we weren't going to name names, but I just named Dave Ramsey.
Here's the thing. I know he's helped a lot of people.
Yeah, he's helped me. And I think he has a lot of great things.
Right.
But it's when people just believe in this one person and that their word is like God.
The whole thing is take what you need and leave the rest. Because I would be like, I'm in. Oh, there was a guy who's based in Vegas who took a lot of my money. I learned a lot. It was a painful lesson on lots of levels. For a year, I was in, and he's lost a ton of followers because of his lack of integrity. And it's interesting because from what I know, he doesn't seem to have a clue why, which you'd think you would exit interview people or something, but take what you need and leave the rest. But one of the things I learned to ask myself, even when I get excited, is this sounds really cool. Is this right for me right now?
That's a great thing to ask yourself. Yeah.
Speaking of gurus, I love Joe Polish. I love the guy. I love him. I've met him a couple of times. He's made fun of me in my book. He was like, really? Your mouth is open on the front and the back? It's like, it took you 7 years to write this? I couldn't figure out who it was for, but I love him. I love what he does with recovery. I think he has massive integrity. I just love him. And one of my dreams is to be in Genius Network. And right now, it does not make sense for me to be in Genius Network. I could go take out a loan, and it's one of my goals. I'm sure some people might say it's a little culty because I know there's and it's a bro, but there's a lot of women too, but it's very heart-centered. But I want to be in that community at least for a year and experience that. But right now, it does not make sense for lots and lots of reasons.
A cult wants you to think like them. They don't want you to think for yourself. That's the part. You can have these people that inspire you. They can be gurus and inspire you. But at the end of the day, you also have to be able to make decisions on your own and feel in integrity with yourself and not feel like, oh, well, they believe that. So you know what? I guess I should believe that, even though in my gut, I don't feel like I should believe that. I want people to be true to who they are.
I'm just going to encourage anybody. If any of this is resonating, call Heather because she has integrity. She will not just take your money, and she'll tell you what's really going on if you are confused about your business or whatever. And I highly recommend working with her. She's a friend and a colleague. I want to say something else because I grew up very dysfunctional, alcoholic, lots of trauma, drama, whatever. And one of my fears was that I would finally make money and I would lose it, but I would. And so I knew I wanted to educate myself. And so that's one reason I was doing Millionaire Mind and all these different things. And because I could not trust my own family. Most people can trust at least one parent or one sibling. And I didn't have that at the time. I was looking for somebody to mentor me. And even if they weren't forever mentors, they got me to move. And did I make some mistakes? Yes. And did I give people too much credit and power? Probably. I'm grateful because it got me to move because I knew, okay, I'm waiting tables. I'm running around the country speaking. I'm doing comedy. I love what I do, but I know I cannot keep this pace forever. And I don't want to be an 80-year-old, you can kiss my grits waitress at Mel's Diner. So
and inspiration is so important to have somebody that inspires you. If someone is at their job and they hate their job and they're hearing a podcast with someone speak and they're like, oh my God, I want to start following this person because they inspire me. I've done the same thing. I listen and then I have loved to learn. Again, it could be another shiny object. Like I love to learn so much that yes, I'll buy this program because I want to, right. And I will get super, super excited about it. The thing is that we get excited, we get inspired, but now we have to take action. I think it's so important to work with someone like you or me that are coaches that are grounded in what we do. We're not being gurus. We can take whatever you've learned from something else and now let's put it into work. Elaine, explain what you do with people to help them take it to the next level. They learn from the gurus, then they come to you. They want to be great speakers. They want to be on video.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for the question. I just started a new group program, which I just love. So I have these amazing women who do emotional release work. It's so powerful. And they both were like, I need to be doing short form video. I don't know where to start, And so I love helping women, mature, spiritual, conscious women who are ready to be seen on a new level. That's my favorite people to work with. We started that in Captivate the Crowd. And then I also do one-on-one VIP coaching for people who have big speeches coming up, big opportunities. And one of my video clients, I just got off a call with her. I'm helping her as a bonus. And so I'm giving her some extra love. I love helping people grow themselves and their voice so that they can grow their business. Because if you're not visible, if you're not out there speaking on some platforms, live, on video, online, you're not going to have a business. It's very hard to keep a business or grow a business if you are not out in some capacity, depending on your market.
We work directly with our clients. You can follow Guru. Chances are you're not paying that person to have one-on-ones with you. If you are, it's going to cost you a fortune. So usually what happens is you join the Guru's group and then one of their employees will coach you or work with you. And yes, they've been trained by that person, but a lot of times it's not the same kind of attention. Right. I want to say after the Gurus, we can help you. Do you have any other last thoughts of the blurred lines between self-improvement and brainwashing? It's good to have self-improvement. I think that's an important thing to spend money on, is to do self-improvement. What are your thoughts around that?
This is great. I'm like, can we do a part 2 with this? Because clearly I have a lot to say. If you need filler, come. So I spoke about this guy in Vegas who I got invited to his event. I'd heard about him for years, but felt dubious because even though I'd heard about him, he was supposed to be a legend in the college market. Nobody in the college market knew who he was. So there was that was a disconnect. I go to his thing. I liked it. I drank the Kool-Aid. So I'm there. I have the years, some of it's great, some of it's not. And then in the end, it was very painful to learn that I'd been lied to and whatever. I vowed I'm taking a break. That was 2011. I was really over it because I had the Peak Potentials thing. I studied with Debbie Ford, who I loved her work, did not feel set up, felt completely baited and switched about the training as opposed to having my own life coaching practice. There was just a part of me that was holding. When I finally was okay, it's been a couple of years. You're in a rut, girl. I've never been someone to sit around. I was always doing stuff, hustling. I started asking people that I knew and trusted, what's your take on this person? What's your take on this? What's your take on this person? It's just when I bought my Mini Cooper, I did not, what are you reading online? You have no idea if that's a professional copywriter pretending to be Shelly B from Tucson. So I would go in New York City, I would walk up to people and go, excuse me, do you like your Mini Cooper? What's the maintenance like? How long have you had it? I did my own research because I knew that was a real person with their family getting out of town on Friday or whatever. And so I started asking real people instead of because it's just really hard to know what's real online. And so when I finally pulled the plug and I joined a mastermind in again, it wasn't some great things, some not so great things, but I learned so much and I needed a big container to finally leave my corporate job, whatever. I don't regret it, even though I believe sometimes we go for one reason and then we get all these other things. I would just say, get excited and then have a friend or 3 that you can check in with who know you. And I'm not talking the yes friends, because we all have those who are you're amazing. Yes. They'll tell you yes. I'm talking about the friends like Heather who'll go, well, Elaine, I don't know if that's really a good idea for you. Or, you know what? Those jeans make your butt look wider. Okay, thank you. Tell me that. Elaine, you've got broccoli in your teeth. That's a true friend to me. Learn from everybody. Remember that a lot of people have agendas. Do all the free trainings and then check in with somebody before you click to buy whatever it is. And I've bought a lot of things and I love supporting my girlfriends in business. I buy things all the time and forget whatever. And if you don't have real friends like that, you can cultivate that and call Heather, because Heather, we've talked a lot about me, You are so good at systems, which is why I'm starting your program on Monday, because I am not, and I will probably be cranky and resistant. Maybe I won't be, but a lot of people like me are creatives, and we're like systems. You mean like Microsoft? Like, can you tell us a little bit about what
Yeah. So it's actually starting on Tuesday, which is my birthday. We're going to be putting in place some different systems, but gamifying things to make it a lot more fun to track things in your business. And I'll be providing worksheets and templates and fun little interactive type of activities to track things. So it's not just doing things in a spreadsheet. I love to make things more visual because to me, that's fun. Not everybody likes to go into a spreadsheet and enter data every day. And that's not always
Not
fun.
everybody. Are you kidding? I break out into hives. I've come a long way. If you had told me 5 years ago, I would be editing and doing some of the detail-oriented things that I'm doing right now, I would have laughed in your face. So I have matured and worked on cultivating some things. Now, ultimately, I can't wait to have a bigger team to pass some of this back to. At the moment, I'm doing some of it. But if you are willing to be uncomfortable and if you're willing to be coached, you can learn skills that you don't think you can do. If I can do it, oh, honey child, you can.
Yes, totally. There's going to be no cults or gurus. And it's funny, I looked up the meaning of cult, but I didn't look up guru. There's some people in the business, Gary V, what's the ClickFunnels guy?
Russell Brunson.
Yeah. I have one of his books. Yeah.
I have three. I think he's adorable. He doesn't like cussing on his stage. He's very committed to his wife and his family. He really is a goofball internet crazy dude, but in a good way. I'm not a ClickFunnels person for lots of reasons, but I know a lot of people who love his stuff. If somebody really resonates with you, check him out, but also keep in touch with your gut.
Yeah, exactly. And there is that sort of bro-y marketing kind of guy, that guru. Like there are definitely like the male centric gurus and then the very few female, but there are like people like, I think Tony Robbins is like a good example of crossing both lines. So like he's approachable for women, he stands tall and he doesn't come across to me as like a bro-y. There's a sensitive side to him. I don't know. Like he's strong.
Yeah, there is and another guy that I really loved learning from was Jeff Walker. I was in his world for 2 years. I had heard of him. And then I met somebody who was like, I'm going to the thing. Are you going? And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got a free ticket. There are a lot of guys who follow him. It's interesting because I know quite a few women who've tried his particular formula and it didn't exactly work for them. But again, you never know exactly what was the execution and the market and the messaging. There's a lot of factors, just like a movie. It's really hard to make a good movie because there's so many places you can make it bad, right? But take what you need and leave the rest. It's a journey.
The gurus, I mean, that's just semantics. I don't know exactly what the definition for a guru is. We know what the real guru is, but as far as like a business guru, but I mean, you could say like Oprah Winfrey was a guru, or she is a guru. She had a level of influence. If Oprah said to get something like read this book, people are going to do it. But she wasn't culty about it. Like it wasn't a cult, but it was like, but she has a level of influence that's like remarkable. And so as business owners, we want to have influence. We just don't, we want to do it in an ethical way. That's the difference.
And here's what I want to say about Oprah. She has evolved clearly. She has lived her life publicly and made some huge mistakes and owned them and cleaned it up and rebooted. She made a big mistake with her school in South Africa for a while when she went on her own with her own, that it was tanking. One of the reasons I still love her is she admits things and course corrects and whatever. And I love how much she gives back. And so it's just great to look at. I guess one of the things we probably should do a part 2 is sometimes I've seen a lot of people come and go, right? I've seen people have a super hot program and for whatever reason, they're getting a lot of visibility or whatever, and then they disappear. And that's okay. Maybe that's their path. Yeah, just check everybody out, read the reviews. If you're contemplating joining a program or working with a coach, it is absolutely appropriate to ask for references. And if they don't want to give you a reference, run. run. Seriously, because I know I have clients, Heather's one of them, but I know I have people that I could say, I just got 2 new clients because of a reference, because I delivered value and I care and I give a lot. And I'm happy to do that. It's always okay to say, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. I don't know. When you're in the sales conversation, they may not like that, but it's you and your money. It's absolutely okay to say, you know what, I'd like to talk to some other people who've been in the program.
That's a really good tip, because testimonials on a website is one thing, but to actually talk to somebody and find out is completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Oh, I did have a thought that kind of ran through my brain earlier, because we've been talking about don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's from Jim Jones. Yeah, in the 70s, mass suicide, terrible. But, the thing about Jim Jones is, if you follow his history in the beginning, he was actually doing great things in the community. I think it was in San Francisco. He brought together like the Black and white communities, and he was helping the poor, and he was doing all these great things. I think the drugs and the controlling of women came later. So he started off this great person. It could be that some of these people just become megalomaniacs over time. So they may start out great, and then they turn into a different person.
You never know. And another person who I really admire from afar is Brendan Bouchard. I have a bunch of his books. I have been to one of his events. I came late because I had a speaking gig, go figure. But I was blown away at the community, the involvement. And he's such a goofy white guy. People say I remind them of him, which I think is a huge compliment. But anyway, so he's grown, right? So now he travels with like security, and some people are like, whoa. And I've heard different things about some of his trainings, whatever. But you never know, is that his egomaniac, or did he have some bad stuff happen? You never know what's really going on in somebody's life. So again, take what you need, leave the rest. Ask yourself, is this something I need right now?
And if they're telling you that you need to sell all your cars and send them the money, run.
Or if you're at an event and they're bragging that they just signed somebody up who's homeless and living in her car, you might not want to do business with people like that.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen where somebody was like, oh my God, I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I've been living in my car. And somebody said they would give me the down deposit. And so I signed up, and we're all like, okay. And that's like a $12,000 program. And then the very next day, the person holding the event talked about how they take all the people to court if they break their contract and how brutal they are. And I remember just thinking, I have to leave. I can't be a part of this. This is against my heart. And here's the thing. Everybody has a right to run their business. So I just said, okay, I'm out, and I'm not going to work with this person. And I know tons of people who've started to work with this person and then gotten out of it or whatever. But it's okay. That's how they run their business. Does not vibe with me. Whatever. Take it all with a big grain of salt and just call Heather.
Yeah, take what you need and then leave, and just always think for yourself. Encourage people to think critically about things, like really examine it, and don't just take it at face value. And especially today's world, where now we can create something AI. Like now when I look at a photograph, I'm like, is this even real? I'm like,
we were talking about that. We were watching TV the other night. We were like, is that even the person, or is that AI version of the person? It's so hard to know. Yeah.
Yeah. I always want people to think with a critical mind. Our school system teaches us that we have to have the right answer. I love school. I got A's, and it's very regimented. And I think school is very important, but I think also thinking for yourself is super important. And speaking up, I want people to have the guts to raise their hand and be like, no, I don't agree with that.
When I was taking my real estate courses, this is like 2008. And my teacher would say, I'm trying to teach you critical thinking. And I literally was like, what? I had never remembered hearing that term before. And I had studied drama and singing and dancing and theory, but I don't remember thinking a deal through or looking at the numbers. And so I'm grateful for all that training. We'll have to do a part 2, because I know people are probably like, oh my God, this is so much. But yeah, Heather, this has been a blast. And I encourage everybody to follow their dreams, but just be smart about it. And it's okay to go slow and steady.
Yeah, the silver bullet that's going to make it all great, especially in 6 weeks, 10 weeks, or you're supposed to go to a 3-day conference and yes, maybe you will be transformed, but sometimes that there's that honeymoon period and then it deflates and now you're like, well, now what?
They need structure, a coach, and implementation, which is, I call it, it's not the sexy stuff. Sitting at home and editing is not sexy. Like sitting there, follow spreadsheet, whatever we're going to be doing next week, not sexy, but if you gamify it, I'll come play.
And accountability. So the gurus they're not going to give you accountability, not at that level. You need interaction, real interaction. Okay. Awesome, Elaine. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Heather. Love you. Bye.